under the same roof, we share the love, embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Watching the World. Today we have a great show in store for you. And I don't even think it's a show, it's more like a hangout, because we're going to have a time to actually, you guys can ask questions in regards to the Karmelo Anthony case. But we're also going to have a few individuals that whoever wants to come up and have a discussion about it, I'm going to drop the link early so you can actually join the conversation. The only thing that I ask is that you guys remain respectful. We have quite a few guests that are going to be appearing tonight. We have some legal instruction from criminal defense attorney Calvin Johnson as well. We look forward to hearing from him. Earlier today, I did a show with a dear brother, Ratchet Gang TV. He's actually down in Texas. He knows all about the area. We covered Diddy's trial together. We have so much work in store, but it's actually good to have him on the channel to convey to you guys what it's like to view this case and understand it from the perspective of someone who actually lives in the neighborhood, who understands the climate, because each state is different. I don't think that Karmelo Anthony's case would have played out the same in New York as it played out in Texas. If you don't believe me, take a look at Luigi Mangione's case that I've been covering, and you'll begin to understand that New York has a different way of approaching these type of cases, these type of trials, okay? So I dropped the link. If you would like to come up and ask any questions, we could do so. For those of you who may not be familiar with this case, we're going to start off talking about, while we're waiting on some of the individuals to come in, I want to introduce you to this case right from the very beginning, from my perspective. And again, the link is there because over the week, a lot of people are pushing back on different things that were said in court. Now is your time to come up and let's talk about it. We could pull up the video. I'd like to hear whatever it is you want to convey to myself or to the audience, or if you think something is wrong and you want to correct the record, then now is your time. I've announced it and I'm giving you the floor. And again, you just have to be respectful. A little over a year ago, I heard about this case for the first time because I have a show with criminal defense attorney Calvin Johnson. And we were discussing this show this case throughout the year on our show. Okay. We have a weekly legal review where we talk about these different court cases. Sometimes I travel throughout the country to check out what's happening in regards to even true crime cases. All right, so we have someone willing to come up. I'm going to bring you up in a minute. When it comes to the true crime cases, I went out for Nancy Guthrie and so forth. You guys know all about it. I'm going to be covering another case probably over this week that might require me to travel. But anyway, I heard about this case about Karmelo Anthony, and the first thing I heard about it is you had a young 17-year-old, I believe, 16-year-old maybe at the time, that he was at a track meet, but most people, they said he was at a high school, and he was playing another team. It started raining, so he went under their tent. Because it's the white guys that he got into it with, and ultimately one died, immediately, whenever people talked about the story, they warned that this would probably turn out to be a high, intense racial type of discussion. And we've seen that tremendously over the last year. But at any rate, that was one of the things that immediately, when I sat during this trial, especially during the opening arguments, I learned that Carmelo, number one, it was a track meet, it wasn't a high school. Okay. Now, as far as the rules of bringing in a knife or a multi purpose tool, whichever way you want to slice it, the bottom line is they showed number one, the coach, I think his name is Star. He testified that basically the parents and also the kids would have to sign a document saying that they understand they can't bring weapons into this type of environment. The track meet is basically an extension of the school. Okay. So also, we learned throughout the trial that there was a picture up. Now, some people said the picture showed up afterward. I'm just telling you what happened during the trial. They put up a picture and it clearly says no weapons, no drugs, no alcohol at the track meet. Okay. So they established the argument that you cannot bring a weapon, a knife into the track meet. What's oddly enough, during the trial, one of the witnesses, he testified, and you'll see it when the transcripts come out. He says that he went through security. He said he was searched. So I'm like, well, how did he get this object, right? This knife or multi-purpose tool, according to the defense? How did he get it into the building? Okay. All right. So this was a discrepancy that I was so happy to understand. Like, wow, this is much different. Now this case is shaping up. I had to fly down to Dallas, Texas, and then I had to drive over to the courthouse. I got out there really early in the morning, probably one of the first, and I was able to get into the courtroom every day that I was there. But as I was traveling, I kept hearing, because of the jury selection, I heard that it would be an all white jury. And I said, my, an all white jury, why is this so? And then I would go to various channels on YouTube or perhaps in the media. Different individuals would often say, oh my God, they struck the three only black women because they were teachers and they left a white lady that was a teacher. My, what the discrepancies we have living in America, right? So I heard all of that and I understand it quite well because I cover all these cases. I sit through court and I have two individuals on my team that are high level in the legal field. Criminal defense attorney Calvin Johnson has been doing it for 24 years right there in Dallas, Texas. He even works out of that courthouse, right? And then here in New York, not too far away, I have Candace Kelly. She is a law professor and she's on the show on Wednesday nights. So oftentimes we take these cases and we look at them at a high level. So I want to start off by telling you misinformation hurts a case. Misinformation can, a lot of people say, hey, listen, I want to help Carmelo for whatever reason, but then they push a wrong narrative that really creates more trouble than helps, right? So to say that it was an all white jury, let me give you the layout of the jury, okay? And I want to break it down one by one because I think it's very important for you guys to understand the magnitude of not black people on the jury, okay? Okay, but not an all white jury, okay? So you had five white women, you had five white men, you had two Middle Eastern women, you had one Middle Eastern man, you had four Asian women, and one Hispanic woman. Okay, do you guys copy that? Right? That's a lot to take in. So let's go through it one by one. And I want you to start to feel the cloud of this jury. Now, there's 12 main jurors, and then you have six alternates. We can have Calvin Johnson when he comes up to talk about it. But let's go through it. You had one juror, white woman. You had a white male, Middle Eastern woman, Middle Eastern woman, Middle Eastern man, Asian woman, Hispanic woman, white male, male, white woman, Asian woman, white male, white woman, white woman, white male, white male, white woman. Do you guys understand why people, although it wasn't an all white jury, as many people were saying, it caused a great cause of concern because of Carmelo? Because when people hear you can be judged by your peers, they think, oh, well, he's black. He should be judged by black people. Peers, he's only, what, 17, 19 years of age now. So maybe he needs some 20-year-olds or something like that. But that's why I leave that to Calvin Johnson to really break it down for you guys. And he's been doing that over the week. But this week also, we're going to have Candace Kelly. You see her on Roland Martin's show and places. She's going to be here on Wednesday night to also break it down because she teaches this at a high level as well. So that gives you an idea about the jury, okay? I'm going to start bringing up a few people here and there, but I just want to lay out the landscape of this trial so you can understand what's happening, okay? So basically, we get to the trial. It's really tough to even get in. The judge in this particular case, he hand chose which reporters would be able to cover this case. And the primary guy that he chose, he brought him in to really be able to let the media know what's happening. Do you understand how this works? So now, whatever the narrative that presides about the case, pretty much it could be controlled at a high level. I'm not accusing anybody of wrong. I'm just helping you to understand why, for this case, everybody was really Carmelo, 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 and you'd hear the narrative because there was a weird connection that I call, Calvin and I, we call it the canned testimony. Well, what does that mean to have a canned testimony? The prosecutor in this case brought in about 12 or 13 young kids. Some of them were still in 10th grade, 11th grade, but a lot of them had graduated or will be graduating this year. They testified about that. Okay. But what they would do is, and this is now I go to court cases, so a lot of things that are happening, I know what's happening. So I'm seeing the landscape. But the first kid comes in and he says, Carmelo provoked Austin. All right. And the prosecutor says, whoa, you used the word provoked. Wow. Where'd you get that word? That's your word, right? Yeah, that's my word. Okay. So then the next one came in and they used the word provoked. When I get to 6 or 7 provokes, I'm like, okay, somebody is really pushing this word provoked. Here's another example, and I'm just helping you guys to understand the cases. I know a lot of people don't want to hear what I have to say because it's not favorable. And just to be clear, I've already established right out the bat, you can't bring what's deemed a weapon into the environment of a school. Everybody's probably went to school. They have kids in school. Parents went to school, right? So you want to be in an environment that's safe and what have you. So if you're trying to slant this as, oh, this is a campaign for Carmelo or whatever, that's not the case. And that argument won't stand, okay? Because you're going to see that this is more about the overall case. And when people come up, I'm going to ask them to be very respectful despite what their feelings might be. So at any rate, what's so unique about the case is there was another incident where a guy came in, he had a ball in his hand. He was about maybe 16 to 17. And so the prosecutors proceeded to say to him, so you have this ball, and explain it. He explained that he had emotional issues. That's the reason why he had the ball. So I'm like, wow, man, this was, I'm not doubting it still, but I said, wow, I've never seen a ball at a case where you squeeze the ball. So I'm like, man, he is really shaking. That's something else, right? But then I saw the second one come in with a ball, and then I saw another one come in with a ball, and I'm like, well, wait a minute now. Who's behind these balls? This is just my question. I never really came to a solid conclusion for those of you who may be wondering about those balls, right? But I said, man, this is interesting. They all have to squeeze a ball. One boy left his ball because what happened is the defense primarily would have the kids, the boys, demonstrate what Austin did to Carmelo. And what was so unique about the case, right, is that I counted for two boys, because first of all, let me frame it this way so you guys can understand. We have the guy's name started with a H. He's 16 years old. He came and gave a great testimony, and he basically talked about everything that was happening because it's 20 people in the tent, right? Some people were directly behind Carmelo, Austin, so you can't see Austin getting stabbed. You can't even see Carmelo because this guy is so big, he's moving. Um, in the video, I believe what Hunter said. He says he was sitting here and he turned around. I showed everybody in the earlier video today. You can go check it out. For everybody that's saying that Carmelo was already under the tent, you're absolutely wrong. You see Carmelo, you see Austin and Hunter, they all come walk to the tent. You can see that Hunter sits right where the spacing is because Carmelo comes and he sits right behind him. Okay. So you can see that in the video. I showed you guys that because according to the courtroom testimony that you'll see when the transcripts come out, that Hunter and also Austin, they arrived at the tent at 9:54. And then Carmelo arrived 2 minutes later at 9:56. And I showed you guys in the video. And then I'm right because when Austin gets up and to go attack him, he goes to the guy that sat down. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Okay. But at any rate, okay, when they sit under this tent, there's different vantage points and everybody can see different things. This guy Hudson says that from what he saw, Austin went to, hit Carmelo with a lineman's drill. I had never heard that term before because I don't play football. The guy before him, named Jay, he described how basically Austin went to try to pull up, Carmelo up out of the seat. That's what he saw. And when the defense attorney had him quantify what he saw, he described it very well because the defense attorney is saying, listen, did he pull him? And he said he was trying to lift him up, basically. Okay. So there's a lot happening. And I was so, it caught me off guard because I sat through a lot of these children. They coming in and they were saying, no, Austin lightly pushed him on the shoulder. Okay. So that's a different type of scenario when you have a lot of kids saying it was a push on the shoulder. I'd already seen the video, and the video don't look like a push on the shoulder. Anybody pushing that is pushing an agenda. You see a big boy and he goes over there. So now by putting together all of these different scenarios, I was able to come to a reasonable conclusion that there's more than meets the eye. That's why, and I keep saying Hunter, when he talks in the video with his mother, and also when he's on Fox or whatever he's on, he says, this boy comes to the tent and he's talking and he's saying all these terrible things. And he was like, I turned around and I looked at him. This is under the tent because Carmelo came and sat behind him. Yeah, you got to follow the facts. You just can't listen to a guy standing on the street corner talking about a case and he says something and you just want to believe it so bad that you refuse to hear everything that's in court. We have to have some sort of reasonability to be able to come to a reasonable conclusion, even though you might feel, some things are a little bit shaky, and I'm okay with calling it out too. But there's a reason why the court system is in place and it works to a certain extent, right? But again, we have to try to follow the facts, not just by watching the video, but we have the police cam where Carmelo says in the video I told him not to touch me. He did, he's saying he's not saying they, so that's one bit of it. You hear from him that this is Austin putting his I told him not to put his hands on me. He did. So that's why he had to handle the situation as he did. Now the weird thing about it, we never had a chance to hear from Carmelo in the case. So that's the big issue that everybody wanted to know, because even probably on the other side with Austin's family, I can tell it haunts the father not hearing from Carmelo as to why this whole stabbing happened. That's what he says. If you listen to him, he repeats himself. He really wanted to know from Carmelo what happened. All right. So, giving you the layout, I just wanted you to understand this is how this case was running. You had all these different stories floating through, and we have to sit there. I'm taking notes. I have my notepad out. I'm observing the judge in this case. He's very stern. I've never seen, well, I'm in New York. I see some stern judges. Some of these judges in New York are like 94 years old, and you'd be like, geez, man, will you just go retire and enjoy your life or something? But anyway, these guys, like there's a judge in Luigi Mangione. Now, listen, I have to stay friendly to the courthouse, but this guy's up in years, and he's like that. He's really like a arm and hammer type of guy. So I've seen this type of activity, but I saw it very strong down in Texas because I saw the judge tell the jury, sit down. I was like, oh, geez, this is a little bit different, right? Usually there's more grace given to the jurors. So I'm giving you the layout of what basically we saw while sitting in the courtroom. Carmelo's family sitting to the far right. I was sitting with the 27. We were closer to the Metcalfs. You had the jurors sitting in their box, 18 of them throughout the trial. And then ultimately, 6 will be dismissed and 12 will remain to give their final judgment on the life of Carmelo Anthony. You have the judge sitting at 2 o'clock position. Carmelo Anthony was sitting basically right in front of me. I could observe him throughout the day. He seemed to be taking notes, which made sense. He didn't give a lot of expression, and he would shake a lot. I never could understand. But listen, during the opening arguments for the prosecution, they explained that he had epilepsy and he also has a lot of seizures. So when I heard that, they also mentioned he enjoyed camping. Okay. The prosecution didn't talk a lot about Austin. They basically talked about Carmelo, that he was on basically a man on a mission that day to do wrong and to really take a life without even caring about it. That's the kind of general perception that I had. They wanted to paint that he tried to run away, he threw his knife. And so when the defense came up, they said, listen, I know you heard this from the prosecution, because here's the thing that most people don't understand about this case. Mike Howard, who is the main attorney for Carmelo Anthony, he has this, and I don't want to say anything wrong, no shot at him, but he wants to come across as the Christian guy, I don't know if he's a Christian. I don't know what he could be. That's not my issue. I say that just so you can get an idea. He wants to be soft, and he wants the jury. You get attorneys like that. They want to connect with the jurors, and if they can connect with the jurors might send the case in their favor. So I kind of got that from him. Now, one of my favorite attorneys of all time is Brian Steele. So I kind of saw a little version of him with Toby Shook. He's more like the Matlock or the Columbo type of guy that'll ask those tough questions. But there was still something in this case that was lacking, because number one, it seemed like they ended the case abruptly. I don't know why. They only called about 6 witnesses. So I had this feeling like they had some pow moment where they would have a video that maybe, remember, I told you guys over the week, Eddie pretended to be filming the fight. So the parents said that Eddie invited Carmelo to the tent. And then when things go left, Eddie starts filming them going back and forth. Well, when Toby Shook asked Eddie, say, Eddie, hey, were you recording? He says, no. He says, my phone was off. Ha 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 ha. I'm like, your phone is off? The attorney says, this day and age, everybody records fights, something like that. So at that moment, Toby Shook says, do you know the two people? He mentioned their names. I wrote it in my notes. They saw you recording, and he just hesitated. So I felt like there was a video somewhere. And so Toby Shook told Eddie, he says, number one, because Eddie tried to downplay that he was even friends with Karmelo. Okay. And the defense did an excellent job at refuting all of those false claims because they put up essentially 8 photos that showed, there was Eddie and Carmelo playing the video games and Carmelo's playing the guitar. You have family events. You see Carmelo with Eddie's cousin, who's his girlfriend, Carmelo's girlfriend. Okay. But then Carmelo is with Eddie's grandma. You see the parents. You find out both sets of parents are friends. There's all sorts of things. Then you see the text messages they show between Eddie and Carmelo. When they first met, Eddie, right? It's amazing. I remember this stuff, but I took good notes. Eddie says, he texts Carmelo. He says, oh, man, we should do a 2-man. And I said, man, I'm from Virginia. I live in New York. I don't know what a 2-man is. It sounds a little weird to me. But anyway, it meant a double date. That's just not what I hear. So I didn't know. So it's like, hey, we could do a double date. Okay. So these guys, they want to do all sorts of things together. So over time, this all went back to 2023. Okay. 2023. That's when their relationship really started off. So there was a lot of good buddyship and this and that, right? So now I look at Austin's family, right? And rest in peace to Austin. It's a shame that he lost his life at a young age, right? Everybody, we have to show some respect for Austin, despite what you might feel about the case. The young man was cut down. His life was gone, non-negotiable, right? But anyway, I saw his family, and they're starting to look weird because Eddie is falling apart. I observed some other things, but I dare not say it because I don't want to go there. But there's some communications floating around, but I'm going to stay off of that. Okay, so now Eddie is looking back into let's stay off of that. So Eddie, at this point, he's getting uncomfortable because now they've let the cat out the bag, as they say, right? But dig this. The prosecution. Now, I only saw 2 objections, during the earlier parts of the trial. I don't know how many there were, but not enough to solve an issue, right? But when these photos were going up, when we got to photo 7 or 8, the prosecution says, oh, man, I think we've had enough of this over here. And the judge looks at Toby Shook and he was like, yeah, I was about something like, I was about to say the same thing, or I've had enough too. So I'm like, wait a minute. You don't even want the defense to get off his whole spill? That's a little bit tricky to me. Typically in New York, they let you go. These guys go. So Toby Shook says, okay, this will be my last photo. So then he pulls out a photo. He takes it over to the prosecutor, right? And he looks at it, made him a little uncomfortable. And then he calls for voir dire. That means he gets to go now and discuss it with the client really quick, or the witness really quickly. He came back and showed him the photo. But here's the thing. So this case is a little weird, but this is the point you really want to focus on. And this tells me a lot about the case, and I dare not say it, but you probably could come to your own conclusion. The next thing that Toby Shook says, he says, Eddie, he says, is it true that 10 days prior to Austin dying, that you and Carmelo were together at the previous track meet? I said, "Whoa, wait a minute." I had to readjust my seat. I'm like, "Wait a minute. Now this is what I thought when I came down in the airplane." I'm like, "I bet these guys have seen each other before." But anyway, I'm gonna leave that there. We're gonna put it on the table. So he says to Eddie, he says, "Yeah, when you were at the previous track meet, you guys were together then." And Eddie says, "Oh, yeah, we were together at the concession stands." Concession stands, okay. But then Toby Shook says, "But you guys were also sitting together on the field." You know what Eddie said? Eddie said, "If I was on the field, I was warming up." That's what he said. "I was warming up." And then Toby Shook put that photo on the screen, and it showed Carmelo and Eddie just sitting there having the time of their lives 10 days before at the previous track meet. This story is not adding up because all of these students came in and they pretty much testified that Carmelo walked in, dapped up Eddie, sat down, and he really didn't say anything else. Almost like he came there as a man on a mission. It's almost like somebody coming to your family reunion, right? They come to your family reunion, you don't know who they are, and they go over there and dap up little Ray J or whoever, and then they just sit down. Maybe they start eating food or whatever. You don't know how they fit in, right? But that's the picture they were painting about Carmelo. Okay, all right. So now everybody begins to realize that these guys knew each other quite well. So that's why now when I hear the father go on national TV and says that Eddie had invited, now I don't know. He says that Carmelo was invited to the tent by Eddie. I have to give that some thought because of all the testimony. I don't just look at one part, I put it all together. Okay. So that's a key ingredient because here's where it really gets out of control, right? This is where it really gets good. Eddie, he makes a statement that day. Remember, this happened on April the 2nd, 2025. Um, Eddie says that Carmelo called Austin a bitch. Austin called Carmelo a bitch, right? That's his statement that day in court. Oh, here comes. I told you this guy, Toby Shook, he's like a Matlock or Columbo. So he says he had him commit to an answer. And then he says to Eddie, uh, he says, "Do you know what you wrote the day of when this actually happened?" He said, "Do you know?" And this is what they would ask: "Do you know you were being recorded when you gave your first testimony?" Yeah, yeah. "Do you know you?" And then Toby Shook says, "Did you hear anything about bitch ass?" Bitch ass. He says, "No, I didn't." Just the first. He said, "Just the first word, bitch." Right. So then here he goes. He goes and shows him his statement, and I saw Eddie swallow some spit, like he saw three-headed horse. Right. And what he said when it happened, he said that Austin told Carmelo, "I'm going to move your bitch ass up out of here." Carmelo says, "Well, move my bitch ass then." And that's probably some of the last words before, as what some of these kids say, Austin hit him with that lineman drill. This is all transcripts or ask people that were in the court. I'm not the only one talking about. I was the first one to bring up that lineman drill because I get so mad, get upset when I see the mainstream media just pushing a specific narrative. I already told you in this case, the media was handpicked and brought in. It sounds like a storyline to me. I said, "Oh, I'm getting a little bit uncomfortable. Let me make sure I get back to my airplane," right? Okay, there's something weird going on here, right? So anyway, I'm giving you guys my expression, my experience. I cover a lot of these cases, so you can take away what you want and what you don't want. Just leave it at the door, right? Okay, so now we get the idea. Eddie is the common denominator. When Eddie sat down, the attorney Toby Shook says, "Listen, you're the man of the hour, right? You know, you're the no, actually, I'm sorry, it's the prosecution actually said it to him first. He says, "You're the guy who everybody has tied together to this case. You're the nexus between Austin and Carmelo." Okay. So that's why Eddie is the key ingredient And I felt he was the best witness for the case. Now, this is where a lot of people are going to go left in this case. They're going to get upset with me, maybe. But I have to give you guys the facts of how this thing goes. Eddie helped me understand, and also Hunter, because I'm putting together, when I go, sometimes if I can't sleep, I'll open up the book and I'll start going through the notes, and then I'll look at other people and so forth. Give me 1 second. So here's the deal. According to Eddie, Karmelo walks up and he gives two different stories because everybody's saying that Eddie was already in the tent. Karmelo walks up and dap him. Eddie tells a different story. Eddie says he was down at the lower parts of the tent. A guy named Chris came in and said he switched seats with Eddie so he could be closer to Karmelo. Eddie says that Karmelo started popping off to the boys under the tent. That made sense to me because all these other little black boys were saying, I told Karmelo to get out of here. So it wasn't a white on black thing. You guys need to scratch that initially, right? The world made it into race. But these kids, they all said, we told them to get out of here. I saw several black people say, get them up out of here. But Eddie tells why. Eddie says that Karmelo started to say, and I think it was in a football type of way, he said, you guys suck ass. So that's what triggered these guys all of a sudden. You get 4 minutes. And when they hear that you suck ass, they all react in a certain way. When you go to Hunter, who's sitting it, he talks about it when he's in the video. He said he's sitting there. Keep in mind, I already showed you guys where Hunter was sitting. And I do this show, and I show you guys in the video that Karmelo came to the tent after the boys arrived, not before. Okay? I showed you guys in the video. People still not going to believe it. I don't know what the world is coming to. But anyway, when you look at the video, go back and watch my previous video today. When you look under the tent, after they sit down, when Hunter sits down, because I know from the testimony where everybody pretty much was sitting, but Hunter sits down in the gap. 2 minutes later, according to the courtroom testimony, Karmelo walks in the tent from the left side. Another boy testified he came from the left side of the tent. Okay? So you see Karmelo walk in, he sits right behind Hunter. That's why Hunter tells you in the video, a lot of people don't want to accept it. I believe in accepting all the facts, taking all the facts and try to solve a problem. If you try to bury it's a multi-purpose tool. No, it's not. If you start doing that, you're going to lose your case, right? Because now they're going to see you bullshitting. All right. So anyway, that's a whole different story. I don't want to go there with people. These people are insane. Anyway, whatever. Hunter tells you in the video, he turns around. That's consistent to the courtroom testimony because he's hearing Karmelo saying whatever he's saying. Somebody says, well, who is this guy? He says, I'm a nobody. That's what Karmelo says. I'm a nobody. That's in the courtroom testimony. Okay. So different people are chiming in and saying, you got to leave. You got to leave. Hunter says when he looks over, Austin grabs his backpack. That's Hunter's perspective when he turns around because as you guys have seen the video now, Austin just takes off in 5 seconds. That's all it is. It's a 5-second deal. At 10 o'clock and 48 seconds, according to the courtroom testimony, Austin takes off. The fight breaks out. You see him do whatever you want to interpret that as. He does it. At 10 o'clock, right, in 53 seconds, the suspect is running. And then you see Karmelo run up to the back of the tent. This 5 seconds. If you go back to the News Nation, when the guy went to see these videos about a year ago, he clearly says, I saw it. And he said, he basically described when he went to the ISD, he described everything I saw when they let these videos out. He said it was very clear, but when they zoomed in, it was very blurry. So what did I do? I came and I told you guys, we're seeing the same video. It's just that at the ISD, it was clear, right? Because they saw it from a distance. But when they zoomed it in, the guy from News Nation said it was blurry. You couldn't really make out the people. The same problem that we're having today. So in court, we typically saw the zoomed in version. That's all we saw. But guess what? The timeline is the same. Okay, the timeline is the same. But anyway, let's I'm gonna deal with the whole video situation later. Let's just focus on what happened under the tent so you guys can understand. So again, Hunter describes his situation. He says, I turned around. That means Karmelo was sitting behind him. I showed it to you guys today. He arrived 2 minutes after the boys did. In fact, in court they said, and you can go to Neek at Night. They said that after the twins arrived in the tent, 2 minutes later you see Karmelo arrive, and they say he took a beeline to the tent. 2 minutes later. Okay? It's going to take the transcripts for people to see it, and then they're going to say, oh, yeah, I think they edited the transcripts. It gets to be crazy at some point. But anyway, all right, so that's what's happening. Here's what's interesting about this case. There's a boy, his name starts with a T. I saw him, a black guy. You know what he said? He saw Karmelo. Karmelo came, he had his backpack on his shoulder. I showed you guys in the video how he comes in. You can see he has the backpack if you look at the right video, the clear video from Fox 4. He takes the backpack, he puts it in his lap. Okay? And when you go to the prosecution's opening arguments, they say he always had the knife open. They didn't say multi-purpose tool. They said knife, okay? So I'm giving you the facts of the case from the different perspectives. All right? So he said he always had the knife open and he had it inside of his backpack, okay? So Tion, oh shoot, I didn't want to say his name. His name started with a T. He made a statement in court. He said he told Austin, don't mess with Karmelo because I feel like he has a knife. Do you know what Austin said to him? He says, I don't think he has a knife because we live in Frisco. And he proceeded to go and do what he did. So he had a warning, right? So let me be like the pastor and give you a little lecture, all right? When somebody tell you don't do it, all right? That's all I'm going to say about it, okay? Sometimes you got to heed the warning, right? And this is not a bad thing against Austin. It's just these things happen in life. Sometimes someone don't even have to tell you. You can feel it. This guy, his name started with a T. He said, I could feel it in the air. Something like that Karmelo had a knife. Told Austin, don't do it. He did it anyway. And we saw what happened to Austin. It's a sad thing, but true. Okay? So there's a lot of things happening under the tent. Now, check this out. I've seen individuals come out, and it really bothers my soul because I understand exactly when Hunter is turning his head around. But you have people out there putting a narrative that when he left after Karmelo ran out of the tent, Hunter chased him, and then Hunter turns his head around. That's not true. This is insanity, folks. I mean, you're just following after the wind. Tomorrow somebody else come out with a story, and you run with that. Meanwhile, if you don't address the facts, you'll never be successful with a case in court. I've learned that. I go to so many cases, right? You have to embrace the bad news, the good, the bad, the ugly. And then you get an attorney like Calvin that's willing to go in there and put it on the table. Yeah, this is true. This part is true. Okay. He had a knife. Okay. Why did he have a knife? You got to put it on the table. And again, this doesn't take away from the fact that Austin lost his life, because I know people want to go down that road. But this is not about Austin. Austin situation dealt with his memorial service and all of that. This trial is more about Karmelo and what the verdict would be for him. Not everybody's going to understand that, but this is what we're talking about. This was Carmelo's trial. Okay, so that's why we're talking about it from this reference point, so people can actually learn from the trial and tell their kids what to avoid. All right. Now, I want to really tell you something in this case, and I'm going to open this thing up. I could go on another hour about this case because I've just, this case bothered my soul because I know the experience of how the inequalities in our country sometimes they translate and it doesn't come over so well. And I see people, their soul is pining away because of injustices or they go through certain things. And I think about, I don't even want to go there. So let me stay on this side of the street. Okay. I won't go there today, but I should. So the bottom line is when you look at this case, you have to accept the fact that there was a lot of going back and forth, and what it seems is that Carmelo said something that people like to troll now online, right? Like if you go to the chat, you're gonna see some people just saying weird things, right? That's the idea that they portrayed in court, that he went out there and he was like, hey, you guys suck ass, you guys suck. So it's like here again at the family reunion, right? Your friend, and you show up, you know somebody at a family reunion, you go there, and I stand up and I say, you Jones people, y'all are the worst family around town. The grandma, whose son is that? You know, the grandfather, all the cousins, they're gonna start, coming for you. That's just how it's going to go. And they're going to have you out there in the flash. This is how the nature of life works. The prosecutors tried to paint this picture. And I've told this story so many times, but it's like when you watch the Discovery Channel and the guy's duck hunting and they blow the horn and the duck comes and then he's shot. That's what they're trying to say. That Carmelo started with some words. He aggravated them, provoked. That's why they pushed that word provoked in the trial. And then Austin came to him and he cut him. That's what this is, how simple that the prosecution laid this case out to be. So I'm just helping you guys understand it's a very complex case. But at the end of the day, here's the part, and I spoke about this earlier today because I think about it at every level. What do you do when you have a guy that's 6'1" and 225 pounds? His mother said that in the video. You have another guy, 5'7", 130 pounds, and that's a big weight discrepancy, and he's coming and potentially picking you up on metal bleachers. Have you ever fell? Have you ever fell down on metal? It's not the easiest thing. So imagine somebody drop you on your head. So it's not easy because you still have to, even if you say, listen, let's just take the whole knife element or whatever out of it. This is not the last time somebody's going to pick somebody up at the bleachers or try to pick them up or hit them with a lineman's drill, all because you're using your mouth. So, and talking to people and calling names, So this case is very complex. And the case also goes to show that we live in a world where we're so caught up in our own lives, we don't realize that our kid, little Johnny, is going to school, and one kid keeps telling him he's a chimp, and the next one, and then maybe your son is the bully, and he's going around calling people names. All of these dynamics go on at school, and we're not privy to it. But these are real life matters, and everybody's so focused on their own lives because they're just trying to eat and trying to survive. And when you're in that type of mode, there's not a whole lot you can do. And that's why people are stuck and they're so disparate. Let me tell you something about Collin County. Let's think about it this way. The jury is a makeup of that county, right? And if it's anything like New York, the more expensive the county is and the more taxes are being paid, it's very difficult for inner city type of people to get into those type of areas. In fact, people that live in the upscale areas, they want to live there because they don't want to deal with the rough riding And let's call it for what it is. A lot of these people don't want to be around black folks because they don't want their kids going to school because they have this idea what's going to happen to their kids. A lot of people don't want me to say that, but it's the facts. And I think anybody that live in this country, live in this world know. And quite frankly, some of the places that I travel to, I would want to see some police activity because some of these streets at night, you may not make it off. It doesn't matter if you're black, blue, or purple. If you have some shiny on, or you might lose your life for some sneakers. That's the type of lifestyle that we face depending on what city you're in. And that's why it became such a big deal when the National Guard was going into some of these places. But that's a whole nother conversation. I'll talk about that another time. So anyway, I'm going to open it up for you guys to come on. I know we probably have all sorts of comments about this. I'm looking for someone who's willing to debate because, listen, as much as you guys talk all that noise during the week, and I get all these messages, oh, well, Karmelo was under the tent first, and then the boys came. Well, who told you that? Billy Bob Tuesday. Well, who the hell is Billy Bob Tuesday? Well, that's the guy I saw at Walmart. Okay, all right. So you believe the guy at Walmart? Okay, all right. The facts of the case is that's not true. And no matter how many times I try to tell people according to what was in court, I show you in the video. Now, oh, that video is edited. So there's never going to be a point where people, even if you want to make an argument about 4 people jumping or whatever, all this, the fact of the matter is, in this case, it became a very dangerous situation just between Austin and Karmelo, point blank, period. Okay? You could argue. I think the key point in this case is that Karmelo never took the stand. But there's a reason for that. I won't go there. But by him not taking the stand led him to a very dark place that's going to be dark for 35 years if they don't get in line and turn this case around. I'm going to start now to bring up some of the individuals that are here. We have criminal defense attorney Calvin Johnson, but I started to say I'm looking for someone to argue against and for this case. So if you want to come up and argue for, put an 11 in the chat. If you want to come and argue against, put a 22. Whoever you argue against, we don't know at this point, but you have the opportunity to come up and debate. So if you guys are bold enough to say all of this stuff in the chat, now you get a chance to come up in front of a good audience and state your claim and argue your points. Okay, so I already have somebody that's going to argue against the case. Okay. Oh, and she's already here in the building. Shout out to you. Okay, so now I need someone to put a 11 to argue for this case. So who wants to do that? Who wants to come up and argue for the case? And we're going to have someone argue against it. So we're going to have 2 different sides, and I'll be on the lookout for the 11. Let's see if we can get somebody to do that. A lot of people want to support this case, right? Here's your opportunity. Okay, so we have Jamila. Jamila, all you have to do is hit the link and you can come up. Sorry, and pretty soon I'll have you on air. So I'm dropping the link right now. We have 2 different people that are willing to debate. So stick around, guys. You'll get a chance to see it. Right now, I want Jamila to come up. And while we're prepping for Jamila, I'm going to bring up Calvin because our other individual, I just want to get your position first. Hello, how are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well. How are you?
My name's Sabra. I overheard your previous live, and I have a few questions and statements because I'm just going to use what I know. I know I heard Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who has a bar card. She is a lawyer in good standing. She has personal information about Collin County and Judge Roach. not only that, her way of speaking about them was not positive. Furthermore, you're talking about a closed community that's very somewhat like a private hamlet, that there are people that have been there in generations for years. So it's kind of, you can say that they know each other, that they have intimate knowledge of each other, having been around each other. So Karmelo was the outlier and his family was the outlier. The second thing that I could say that I know for a fact, I worked as a special education paraprofessional in New York. Teens are easily coached. Teens are dramatic. Teens are emotional. Teens are led by their hormones and God knows what else. And teens lie. And the prosecution's star witness, his cousin is Karmelo's girlfriend, and he perjured himself twice. So your star witness just perjured himself twice. The fact that the defense didn't call that out, I don't get it. Secondly, everything else that I've heard is rumor. But from what I can surmise from the father putting himself out there, he has a record of his own essay. He put himself out there instead of being demure, and he let everyone know that he was pretty much a supremacist. There are pictures generating that I'm wondering if they're factual, that these boys were avid hunters. They were very athletic and whatnot. My thing is that the key witness, Edwin Para, lied twice. And then here's the thing. He knows the defendant, and he also had to have known the defendant is an epileptic. He also had to have known that inviting this epileptic child into your tent area, and pretty much this kid had seizures. I read that he had seizures where he had a heavy head injury in 2024. I heard that just before that specific meet at that school, he had surgery on his left shoulder. But what I do know is that epilepsy is nothing to be played with. Anything could trigger you to be fatally harmed in a seizure, and you wouldn't know you were gone. That this kid, and that's the other thing, you want to get angry at kids, but they lie and they do things because they're children. That's my main point. When you're at a if you're at an intramural event at a hosting school, when I worked for the Board of Education in New York, the hosting school had to accommodate the minors. They're minors. You cannot refuse them water or a laboratory. They are minors. You have to protect them. Where were the adults? That's one. There's no such thing as you don't belong here. If there was something going on where the Metcalf twins thought that that kid did not belong there, he was being antagonistic, I get it. They're 17-year-olds and they have poor impulse control. But if you've already had problems with impulse control and you've been admonished, you know to get up and go find a coach or a licensed teacher or a counselor or a person assigned to that area. All of this is strange to me when I hear that an event that had coaches and teachers present, that all the coaches and teachers missed the ball. I mean, drop the ball and let it roll. The other thing is, I feel like a lot of people are demonizing Karmelo Anthony for gain, for monetary gain, because no uncertain terms, those 17-year-old wants to see another 17-year-old not live their life and have fun. Being a 17-year-old is a time of life that is full of wonder, and so many things happen. It's a miracle half this country made it out of our teens. The stuff we went through, me personally included. But the kid lied on the stand. That was a big deal. He And he was afraid. He devolved not even knowing the kid, but he's been in the kid's family's presence. He knew the kid was an epileptic. He didn't say a word. He didn't tell Austin, maybe you should back up because this kid has epilepsy. If he has a seizure, we're going to be responsible. Austin didn't go find a coach or a teacher. So you have what they call, I guess, the perfect storm. Two emotional, hormonal, dramatic kids talking smack. And listen, grown men talk smack at sporting events. In fact, at the Knicks games, you were seeing people have fist fights. So there we have it. If the grown men can't control themselves, and Jeff Metcalf seems like one of those guys that couldn't control himself, got on there, condemned the family, accused them of things, all this stuff, talked about suing people, but he said that he didn't want to sue the school because they only had $100,000 cap. Then he accused the Karmelo Anthony family of taking money from a fund, which they didn't. He's putting out misinformation himself, and he's part of the case. So what do you expect other people to do? They're going to perfectly normal run to race because you have a father who's out of control. And I know he lost a child, but I don't understand a man getting on TikTok and Instagram cursing people out when you're grieving. But hey, that's just me. Then you talking about other people's house when you have SA charges on you yourself. And it is rumored that these children were, how can I say? They like to lay hands on people. They loved heavy physicality. And quite frankly, I'm disabled. I'm 65 years old. If someone lifts me up, you damn sure I'm going to take something out my bag or pick something up off the street. That's what we learn in New York. If you're getting your butt kicked and you're in the underdog position and you need help, find something in the street and knock them the hell out. I'm pretty sure this kid did not go there. And that's the part that kills me. The prosecution says he came there with an agenda. I said, a 17-year-old doesn't have enough brain power to have a damn agenda. Not all of them. I can't speak for all of them, but I do know 17-year-olds. I was one, and I've seen them.
Can I? Calvin is an attorney. Do you have any questions for him?
The prosecutor put out he had an agenda. That means he would have had to have known more than one person there to have an agenda. Who did he know? I mean, just all these statements demonizing this kid, and I don't like it. And your friend Ratchet, yeah, the last live you had, he said he was going to pull up this kid's sealed juvenile record if it exists. I'm like, I used to work for the police department. I was the senior police administrative aide. Where the heck is that legal? Yeah, just saying. Have a nice day.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You don't have any questions, right? Okay. All right. I think she's.
Yeah, I think she got her. She got her. She got her words off. I guess. I think ultimately. Like I told you before, we've always had this conversation. When you have an event like that happen and you're going to claim in self-defense, when somebody's stabbed in the chest with a knife, I think a jury is going to want to hear from you. They're going to want to hear if you're going to use a weapon against somebody and that person is going to end up dying over a push or a tackle or whatever happened in the tent. They're going to want to hear from you. And I think that's where we start. I think the minute you use that lethal force, I think you got to testify. If you don't testify and tell them why you use that lethal force, I don't think you can sit there the entire trial and not be able to talk about that. I think that's going to be a problem. So I just think that ultimately that was a huge problem in this case. I don't think that he went there with the intent to kill anybody. But I think that because the state actually put that out there, and if you're going to sit there and not say anything the entire trial, and they're going to parade their witnesses through, and you're not going to really refute it, that they're saying you went there to kill somebody, and you don't get up there and refute that, then they're going to be able to probably try to convince people that that was the case. I thought it was more of a, I thought it was more of a manslaughter because for them to even engage each other, they're arguing. Um, Austin has to attack Carmelo, like you can see in the video, because he did do that. You can see in the video that he did put his hands on him first, but that did not give Carmelo the right to stab him in the chest with a knife. I mean, if you going to respond, you hit him back, you push him back, you get him off of you. I just don't think if you somebody pushes you or they come at you like that, that you get to stab him in the chest. And I think that if you do stab him in the chest, if they come at you like that, you gotta take the stand and explain it to somebody, because if you don't, most juries in most situations are going to find you guilty of what you're charged with. So I think that's the biggest problem in this case. And that's the thing. And that's what I'm trying to say, you know, and that's the other thing too for Mrs. Nicole Ward. Nobody, I didn't say he got jumped. I said that Austin basically attacked him. And we're pretty sure that happened based on the video that we looked at. Austin basically took off on him. When I say took off on him, you can watch the video and Austin really runs at him pretty fast. And then you could see Carmelo do something and then run out of the back of the tent. So I never said he got jumped. I wasn't part of the group that said he got jumped, or I'm not using the jump thing. That's not my thing. So with that being said, there was an altercation, at least between Carmelo and Austin, and then it led to what happened here. But I thought it was more manslaughter because to me it's that Austin goes at Carmelo. Carmelo responds with deadly force, and I don't think you can respond to deadly force when somebody's using non-lethal force against you. But I also don't think that you had the mindset to kill anybody when that happened. I think using a knife in that situation definitely is deadly force that you're using. But I think a manslaughter conviction would have been more befitting here. But as far as him getting completely off, I never felt that was going to happen. But I just think that in the beginning, the way everything was happened, I think that was a problem. And like I said, you know, why do you even have a knife there? Why do you even have a multi-tool there? That's once again, that's one reason why you would want to have somebody testify to be able to answer those questions. If you don't answer those questions, people are going to say, well, tell us why you had the knife there. I mean, you know, people are going to want to, if you had the knife there to clean your cleats out or something else, you got to be able to say that. If you go there with a knife and people don't know why you brought the knife and you have an altercation with someone that results in death, and then you don't take the stand, that's how you end up getting a murder conviction. So that's the problem, and that is the problem. I mean, Mr. Sessa, how do you wield a knife that shows intentions? And see, that's the thing. I mean, people are going to be able to deduct that when you don't testify because you never gave a response for that. So that's going to be a problem when you look at cases like this, Mel.
All right, very good. So let's talk about the appeal process. Because they did not object to a lot of points, and I know that the appeal is mostly about the logistics of the case, but can you explain that to us? Is it any hope for him winning or no?
I think the areas of appeal will be the juror selection part, where they got rid of the 3 African-American educators. Now, they gave other reasons why they got rid of the educators, but it was very curious that they got rid of all 3 of them with their strikes. So that's number one. Number 2, they didn't object that much, and you're right about that. The times they did object, you can try to question that. I also look at the testimony of Eddie, because I think the testimony involving Eddie was pivotal as far as I am concerned. I would challenge Eddie's testimony because it's clear that Eddie and Carmelo knew each other. And it seemed like, because Mel, you were there, that every question that Eddie asked, the defense caught him in a lie-in, right? Seemed just about.
Yes.
And it just doesn't seem to me that the state should have known that this young man, that they knew each other, if they did their due diligence, number one. So I would question that. And then if I would also question where the judge wanted them to move on from that. Like, you don't move on from that, right? If you're an attorney, a good attorney says, "No, judge, the state asked him 15 questions. I've only asked about the first 9 lies he made. I want to ask about the other 6, and I should be allowed to." So I think that they should challenge the fact that they got made to move on from the other 6 lies he told. I mean, you challenge that. I mean, if I'm a appeals attorney, I'm going to argue bias there, because it seemed like for one point in the case, I'm getting the best of them, and now you want me to hurry up and move on. So I'm not saying that that's what happened, but I'm going to make that argument. In addition to that, they're probably going to try to argue ineffective assistance of counsel because he didn't call his client. I don't know how well that's going to go, but I think the situation with the juror, ineffective assistance of counsel, they're going to try to argue. And I would really harp back on Eddie and that part of the testimony where we were forced to move on. That's really where I would try to go and get an appeal on.
Okay. A lot of people want to know, is there any way that they may say no appeal at this time?
When they say no appeal at this time, they could say no to the appeal, which means they don't have to grant the appeal, which means they could say, we don't agree with you on the grounds that you're appealing on. And then he would try to have to go at that point. He could try to appeal to the Fifth Circuit and then eventually to the U.S. Supreme Court. So he can continue to try to appeal, but they're going to let him appeal. But that process is going to take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years.
I had stated earlier, I don't know if you were here for it, that basically when Toby Shook was, showing all of these pictures, that the prosecution was like, this is enough of that. Does that happen to you a lot?
No, not really. When I say it's enough of that, I think I'll say this. The state's going to say it's enough of that, but it doesn't mean it's enough of that. Because I guarantee you that if they caught my witness lying, that they would keep going, right? And I don't think the judge would step in and keep them from catching my witness in a lie. So at that point, I would argue bias, because at that point, why are you keeping me from catching their witness in lies? So that's the argument that you make. Right. You argue bias, and you argue that his civil rights are being violated because he wasn't given a fair trial. His attorneys were not allowed to be able to continue to cross-examine a witness.
Why would Hunter not testify, but he's able to give an impact statement?
I don't think the state called him because he may have some issues. The defense doesn't call him because he could get up there and start crying and melting down, and it would be a bad look for Karmelo's side because, his brother died. Do you really want to think as a juror, do you really want, as a defense attorney, the juror seeing him melt down? He's lost his twin brother. He gets up there and has some mental breakdown, and he can't even walk off the stand. And then you going in and making a decision on your client's life after that. That's why they didn't put him up there.
When Karmelo, as they say in court, thrust the knife into the chest of Austin, we noticed that the knife is partially open. It's not straight away open like the prosecution led us to think. Mm-hmm. You have any thoughts on that?
I don't know. I wonder how open did he have it? He might not even whipped it all the way out. It seemed like when we watched the video, it seemed like Austin ran over there pretty fast and pretty kind of abruptly, right? So it seemed like there was some kind of conversation, and maybe there was an abrupt kind of movement. And from what we're being told by some of the witnesses, that Karmelo had his hand in the bag. He might not have even had the knife fully extended. You know what I mean? So that could have very well been the situation.
Right. Wouldn't the defense have called some sort of expert witnesses to explain that the knife wasn't fully open and this couldn't have happened? Or, it just seemed weird to me. No expert witnesses.
I think they should have maybe tried to get some expert witnesses, but I think part of the problem is Karmelo said he did it. So they were put at a disadvantage by their client. if they said he did it, then you can't really argue that he didn't do it, based on the knife, or the him saying it, the knife or the multi-tool. I don't want to say the wrong thing. People get upset. But he said he did it, so you can't really argue against him saying he did it.
Right. Sorry. What do you think is going to happen going forward in the local community after this video has come out? Do you think that this is going to cause a lot of tension?
I think it's still going to cause a lot of tension. I was on my Facebook earlier today, and I just was giving my legal opinion, and I was trying to explain to people that, there had been a whole bunch of rumors like he got jumped. And Mel, you and I had been of the opinion that he didn't get jumped. I mean, everybody was talking about he got jumped, and I was like, I don't think he got jumped. And it finally came out that he didn't get jumped. And so we had all these people coming on, and a lot of them were kind of upset because I was kind of right about that, right? And so they're having these conversations with us about it. But some people are kind of upset that the narrative that they had been spun is not true about what a way of some of the people were trying to put it out there. Like I said, he did not get jumped. Some of these people were kind of bought in on him getting jumped, and something nefarious happening. And then when you are able to watch the video like you did, you kind of knocked a lot of that out of the box. And so a lot of people are not happy that those things got knocked out of the box. And then they want to say, oh, the video's been altered, it's fake, and this and that. And I had to straighten some people out about that today. And then also, I gave a legal breakdown of what I thought about it. And then somebody, could you take your lawyer suit off and our people this, and that? And I said, man, I'm just giving a legal breakdown. And then she started making some accusations, and I had to straighten her out. I was like, look, don't do that. I'm not, I'm just giving a legal breakdown. Just because I don't agree with you, don't go there with me. And the reason why a lot of people in the community, whether it be black folks or white folks, they're tied in to how they feel, right? The black folks, a lot of us are tied in, miscarriage of justice. He should be able to walk free. He shouldn't even do any jail time. Some of them feel that way. No matter what, he was getting jumped and the video's altered. And there's some folks that feel that way, which we know that that's not true. And then you got some Anglos, white folks are just saying, oh, it's cold-blooded murder. He went there to murder somebody. That's why he had a knife, this and that. And I don't think Austin did anything to him. Karmelo started the fight, and Karmelo probably hit him first. And, you got some people are going to talk like that. And you got that from that side. I think it created even more polarization that was already happening. I mean, I think the polarization that was already happening, and I think it got worse. But I also think that there are still decent people that just say, hey, listen, that kid got killed. Somebody has to pay for it. And I think there's a disagreement about how much the kid needs to pay for it. I think a lot of people are saying, it's more of a manslaughter. Some folks are saying it's just flat out murder. And then 35 years when you see other people across Texas in similar situations get 10, 12, 15. Some people don't like the fact that he got 35 years. But with that being said, those other people in the other situations handled themselves differently. And some of those situations were a little different. So that's a whole nother ballgame.
Okay, I have a question for you. I don't know if you can answer or not, but we see in this particular case, Jeff Metcalf came to the press release for the family, and he was asked to leave. Some say he was kicked out. Do you think there was a time to try to mend the wound, or do you think this caused some sort of racial stir?
Man, there should have never been a press conference. Why in God's green earth would you have a press conference after you probably did the worst thing in your life, which is take another person's life? Even if you feel like you're justified, you're in the worst moment of your life. Why would you want to have a press conference? It doesn't make sense. You don't want your client in a press conference after something like that happens. You got your client out there in a press conference. So now your client's face is all over Collin County and Metroplex area, the Dallas area. Now his face is blasted all across the state. And because the kid got killed at track meet, now it's in this area, so it's around the whole country, the whole state. So now everybody in Texas know who you are. Now, because you're having a press conference, they see your parents' face. Dad can't sell cars anymore. He used to sell 25 cars a month. He's getting to closing the deal. Can't close those deals anymore because they realize who he is and automatically cancel the deal. Now he can't work. They find out what mom's working at. Now mom can't work anymore. So now you have to go sin to be able to have a place to live because people are threatening everybody's lives because they know how you look. And now you're not making any money. And we'll start there. Then we're going to go how disrespectful that is to the person's family who got killed. They're going to take that as disrespect. You just killed my child and you're having a press conference. Let's go there. You don't do it. You absolutely don't do it. I would have fell on the floor and started flopping like I was having convulsions before I would have let them have a press conference. It wouldn't have happened. But that's just me.
In your professional opinion, when did this turn into a race issue?
That press conference. And that shouldn't happen. And I'm going to tell you why I don't think it should have happened. It shouldn't happen because I think that it got made a race issue at that press conference. And that shouldn't have happened. I don't think it should have happened for the Austin nor the Karmelo family. Because I think that with Austin already dying and Karmelo, he shouldn't have to carry the water of race. He's 17 years old. He just did the worst thing he could do in his entire life. He shouldn't have had to carry the whole racial thing through his case. He's only responsible for making the mistake he made. Everybody wanted him to be responsible, but they wanted him to be a sign or a symbol of fighting the system back. And that's not what this was about for him. And it shouldn't have been that for him. And anybody who came along and made it about that instead of making it about him was doing a service. That's why I don't like what happened.
So when he came out to talk about the watermelon felon and all that, do you think that he should get a pass because of the circumstances?
No, I don't think he deserves a pass. I think I understand that you lost your son, but I think you kind of showed who you were. I mean, I always try to tell people you can truly find out who somebody is in their worst moments. I mean, there were some concerns about him and when it comes to race and so on and so forth, but I view that kind of stuff a little different from most, right? If he wants to be a racist, then let him be one. I mean, if he wants to say stuff, let him do it. I particularly don't care about what he thinks about me or my family or what he thinks about black people. I just don't. I think that when people talk like that, he's not somebody that I would want to even seek validation from in the first place. So I consider people like that cavemen or Neanderthals. So why would I want validation from somebody who has these caveman ideas when it comes to race? I could care less. A lot of folks, they get triggered by that kind of stuff. Me, I don't.
Right. A lot of people are asking me in the comments, they say the family, not even in this case, but a lot of families are able to raise money from GoFundMe or whatever for these cases. And then when the person is found guilty, they can no longer access the money that a lot of their close associates had given them. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, at that point, you become a convicted felon or convicted criminal at that point. And what a lot of these platforms don't want to do is they don't want to be a source of raising money from people that have been convicted of crimes. They just don't want to do that. So that's why they start cutting that money off once that happens. And I think that somebody else is just going to have to come up with a different platform to help people that are in those positions. I mean, those people's platforms are platforms. Somebody else is going to have to come up with another platform that is going to allow people to do that.
Right. Especially when they're getting the funds from close associates or people who really feel bad about the circumstances for the individual, right?
Yeah. I want to read this comment. Jeff Metcalf showed up to pray with that family and they turned him away. That's the point. They decided to make this about race. Huge mistake. And Josh Gannon 932, I definitely understand that. And I was told that he did do that. When I say I'm not going to give him a pass, I got to be careful with he isn't saying that because he's in a place where he lost his son. He's in a place where this thing got made about race. Daily, the devil is at his soul about everything. And then so I can understand some of the things that he's probably going through, losing his son and everything being so high profile and all the stuff that happened at the press conference, him getting put out and all that other stuff that was going on. But with that being said, you just don't do that. I think that if you are a true believer, you do not resort to doing and saying some of the stuff that he was saying. And so it is what it is. I have no ill will against him. But like I said, when people talk like that about folks, I just don't respect that or respect him for doing it. He should be charged with a hate crime, calling him a watermelon felon. That's so racist to say. It is racist to say. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's a shame. It's a shame that he's thinking that way. And he showed up to pray in order not to make it about race. I definitely understand that, and I saw how things went south. But at the end of the day, he showed up to pray to not make it about race. But ultimately, it turned into that. They had him escorted out by the police. So let me help y'all out. I was not a fan of that damn press conference. That press conference should have never happened. He should have never been in the position to have to even get escorted out. Who has a press conference once somebody is murdered? It just shouldn't happen. And him getting escorted out shouldn't have happened. And I think that once they did that, he was, balls to the wall at that point. I mean, he was very angry at that point. And I can definitely understand that. Don't give passes to drug dealers and killers. Punishment means crimes. If there's no crimes, no punishment. Okay. Sorry, Carmelo's mom and dad are also racist. So it goes both ways. Okay, I don't know about that. I didn't hear them calling anybody watermelon felons or anything like that. They had the press conference because it was made about race and the family got doxxed and threatened. Revisionist history. And I definitely got that as well, that they were getting doxxed and threatened. And that's another thing within itself. That very well was happening. So you got to think about that. But I don't think they needed to have a press conference. If you're getting doxxed and threatened, don't have a press conference. Don't do that. He made it worse. When that friend said he faked recording, I don't believe that. I don't understand why a Cellbrite report was done. Trust me, there's a video of this fight. Well, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Charleston White capitalizing on the watermelon felon speaks volume. Is that a hate crime? When it comes to Charleston White doing the stuff that he did, I was not a fan of that. I wouldn't deal with him like that. That was just that whole situation of what he did in terms of going back, talking bad about the daddy, talking bad about Metcalf. I just think that you're making stuff worse, and I don't like that. It's not a black-white thing. It's about two young men that lost their lives over nothing. And I will tell you that D-Cran 4D, that was my post. The biggest take that I got from this, and I'll tell people this all the time, it's a big disappointment because an 18-year-old and 17-year-old, two young men, one is dead and one is doing 35 years, and both families are just going to lose their sons. And two mothers are going to have a lot of sleepless nights. And so those are the things that upset me about this case. And then a lot of the fake stuff they got, like the fake pictures of saying that Metcalf was with the judge and the DA, those are fake pictures. The picture saying the defense attorney was with Bill Werski, and that's not even a picture of Bill Werski. It was just a lot of stuff really bothered us. So that's what I had to say about that. But I definitely understand that. The sad part about it is that two young people cannot have conflict resolution better than one dying and one getting 35 years in prison. You're caught up on a comment, but only but couldn't be bothered to look at the contest and said, I don't know. Why are you giving them so many passes, but so upset about the press conference? What do you mean by giving them so many passes, but so upset about the press conference? Let me help you out. I'm a 25-year practicing criminal defense attorney. I would not have let my client do a press conference in a situation like that. You don't do a press conference after you get charged with probably one of the worst things you get charged with in your life. So that's why I'm agitated about the press conference. There was no need for a press conference. That's why I got mad about it. You just don't do that. I've been doing this 25 years. Somebody gets charged with murder. First thing we doing is not having a damn press conference. You just don't do that. That's not the move you make. It's a horrible move. And the reason why I say that is because when you look at the situation itself, you know down the line if you're going to resolve it some kind of way. If I have this press conference, any chances of coming to um, a resolution that it's not a trial evaporates if I have that press conference. If you know what you're doing, and I've been doing this for about 25 years, so that's why I said what I said. Say what you want. Every expert says that a huge mistake was not to allow him in there. That is what made this whole case about race plain and simple. No, there should have never been a press conference. See, then you wouldn't have had to allow him in there. It wouldn't even been a question. That's what it is. So you do not have the press conference. That way the question doesn't come up. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Okay, I get that. I see what people are saying. After they dragged his name through the hood, called his son and family racist, yeah, I wouldn't have forgiven them either. Hey, definitely understand how somebody felt after that press conference. That is what it's going to be. It's going to be what it's going to be.
Right.
What else? Any other comments?
I want to give you guys the opportunity to come up if you have any quick questions. Now's the opportunity to hit the link and come up and ask your questions. All right, Calvin, here we go. Let's see. We don't have a lot of questions. Let's see.
At least Charleston White can be honest about getting duped by people like this guy. I don't know, man. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means. Oh, I just really want to understand what the adults were because they were all getting paid standing around and they knew that this was an issue. Why didn't they take care of it? I'm going to tell you this. I had that question too. And back when we were in school and Mel, we were talking about this. We didn't just go to the other side and be in their tent. And I'm not saying he couldn't be over there, but I just believe that when we're in a sporting event, I'll stay on my team. I stay with my team. I'm not going over there to be with them or be around them. It's just, I feel like there should have been better adult supervision. They were making videos threatening to desecrate his son's grave. They never really did it. I think there was somebody saying some really bad stuff I heard, and I can definitely understand that. They were upset about that. Too many people onto their feelings and emotions instead of looking at the facts. You know what you just said, Ray Johnson, 78, 86. I dealt with some of that today. You know, as an attorney, I gave a logical, non-emotional breakdown, and I had somebody come on and making an emotional response and then start accusing me of doing this and that and started just coming at me all disrespectful. I had to put them in their place because they got emotional. This is a very valuable lesson for everyone. Wake up, America. Yes, a very valuable lesson for everyone. I agree with that. What else we got? As if the Metcalfs don't have a GoFundMe, so much BS. They may have. How did you get past that weapons are not allowed on the premises to begin with? Those little pocket knives are easy to sneak in, and those little wand machines were not the best. Murder. The Texas burden of international and knowing was met. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what that is. Did we believe after listening to the father comments that he was really going to press conference to pray? That's what I have concerns about. When you hear his comments on the internet, I have concerns about that, about him and how he truly feels. But that's a whole other conversation. Question: if this wasn't about race, why has Black society started trends about killing Austin? How is he innocent? Everyone with his mindset doing the trend. I don't know about that. I don't know if that. When I ran track, nobody went to another team's tent. Absolutely not. I definitely understand that, Josh. We didn't. Basketball, man, we stayed on our side. I always tell people the story of me and my best friend went to opposing high schools that day, and we ain't look at each other. We played against each other, man. I'm trying to beat him. He's trying to beat me. We act like we were enemies out there. And that's what you do. You can put anything in a bag, does not mean you know it's there. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means. The Metcalfs had to bury their son and get therapy for their family. I definitely understand that. I mean, I always try to tell people somebody did lose their child that they can never get back. Whether you agree with the fact that that maybe have some racist tendencies, and maybe have some racist tendencies, they did, based on what Mr. Metcalf said. But at the end of the day, he did lose his son, and they lost their son, and they're going to be a particular way about it. But that is really just a meat point. He had 15 opportunities to leave. He'd be home right now if his tough guy attitude didn't get the best of him. That may be true, but also Austin didn't have to run at him. I mean, you don't go at anybody. Now, just because Austin ran at him doesn't mean that Karmelo gets to stab him. But I just think that both of these young men made some huge mistakes, and Karmelo made the worst mistake of his life by stabbing this boy and killing him. And he got to pay for it, and that's what he's doing right now. I am very happy that there's an accurate account of what happened. I am too. I'm glad that we were able to see the video. Why wasn't the actual knife bags as evidence and shown in court memorial? Was the whole thing make no sense? Let me help y'all. It's always Mimi. Let me try to help y'all because I had this question come the other night. And I'm speaking specifically to you. You do not bring a bloody knife in a bag if you're the defense inside of that courtroom. You don't want that in there because what's going to happen is closing statements. The prosecution goes, the defense gets to go, and the prosecution gets to reserve their last 5 to 7 or 8 minutes. And what they're going to do is they're going to use their last 5 to 7 or 8 minutes, and their last exhibit is going to be, let's say this is the bloody knife, and let's say this green can is blood, and they're going to show this green can and leave it in front of the jury right before they go in to deliberate your client's fate. Do you want a bloody, dried up, bagged knife with a nice little piece of bone on the end of it, with a crusty piece of blood, with somebody's little heart matter hanging on the end of it? Do you want that to be the last thing that a jury sees before they go in and make a decision on your client's life? No, you do not. That's why you don't do it. Do you think the father raising around tells a story about how his kids could have behaved as well? Probably yes. The apple typically doesn't fall farther from the tree. Karmelo could have left the tent at any time. Probably. Don't know if anyone noticed Charleston White was doing his apologize in a hotel room, living out his suitcase. I don't even respond to that guy a lot, man. I don't know what he's doing. I have identical black twin sons. We discussed the situation. Their response was they would have just left. You know what? Bibb the realtor, I get what you're saying. You know, you got to be careful. I made a comment and I had somebody get mad at me. I said, my mother and grandmother and grandfather didn't raise me and take all these chances for me to run into somebody that I don't know, have a bad 45-second interaction and lose all of the progress, blood, sweat, and tears they put in me, to lose all of that over a 45-second argument with some guy I don't know and have me go to prison for the rest of my life. They didn't do that for that, and that argument wasn't worth it to me. And somebody got mad because I said that. And I said, no, that's what I believe. And I'm sorry if y'all don't believe that, that's y'all. But I don't want my kid, my sons having that issue and losing them to something like that. The fact is they didn't allow him to come in and to pray and with them because they had already planned on making this about race. The people advising them had advised them poorly. I will agree with you that they got advised poorly. I definitely agree with you about that. The Austin Bop Dance Challenge is inhumane. What say you, counselor? I haven't heard of the Austin Bop Dance. I probably won't hear about it. I just wouldn't do that. I mean, I don't even mess around with that. To be fair, he was gagged for a year and got SWAT 6 times. I don't know. I don't know what that is.
That's Jeff Metcalf.
Okay, I got that. Texas is known for giving black people more years than other states. Not a good place for black people. Texas had their issues with criminal justice. I agree with that. They said the worst places are Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Those three states are really tough. But had the white kid not want to act, he all bad in front of all the white kids, he'd be alive. I always tell people, bad decisions all around got made, but the worst decision got made by Karmelo because he decided to use that knife to stab that young man in his heart. But there were bad decisions on both sides. But Carmelo's bad decision cost Austin his life, and he ended up paying for it. Being a racist is a human right. You know what? It is. And I always try to tell people, people that want to act like Neanderthals and cavemen, I'll let them be that. I don't. As long as it doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect me. I can't change everybody in the world, and I'm not going to worry about somebody not liking me or not liking black people. At the end of the day, I'm still going to do what I got to do. I can't really be concerned with them. Austin should have gone to a coach, not yank a 17-year-old with epilepsy off the ground with all his 6'1", 225 pounds of muscle against a 5'7", 130-pound kid. Bullies eventually lose. I get that. I definitely understand that. But at the same time, you got to be very careful. I just think the whole interaction could have been avoided. 35 years though, more like really like 10. I would have been. I was expecting somewhere. I think between 12 and 20 was my guess if he got convicted, and I wasn't thinking he was going to get convicted of murder. I was thinking more manslaughter, but it is what it is. They could have let Karmelo be and said nothing. He wasn't planning to sit there forever. That's true. That's true. They could have just let him be. I don't think Karmelo should be serving 35 years. Based on what other people got in Texas, I can agree with that. Like I said, 10 to 20 range when I'm watching everybody else getting 15, 12, and 10. That range is something that typically you see in situations like this. I've been in prison. They filled with black people. Okay, I don't know what that's about. Anthony's attorney did not want him to take stand because Anthony would have told the truth. He put his hands on me and I killed him. So his attorney saved him prison time. Just saying. I think that if you put him up there, he explains to him what he felt in the moment. And I think that maybe that mitigates it. I think he'd hurt. I think it hurt him a little bit because he already knew that he was going to say it. I mean, they already kind of knew that part. I would have put him up there to say why he felt the need to respond so strongly. Both sides are wrong and farming for clicks, buys and don't care the actual truth. There's some wrong on both sides. I definitely agree with that. But like I said, somebody lost their life. Somebody lost their son to death. The other person lost their son, but they're still here. That's a problem. The image the cops had of the knife wasn't bloody. What I try to explain to people, what you can do, if you're defense, you really do you want to parade around a bloody knife for everybody to see? An actual trial, you probably don't want to do that. It's gonna hurt you. Anthony's made the worst mistake by thinking they were going to get a fair treatment. I get what you're saying, but with that being said, I try to explain to people, Collin County is only 11% African American. You're only going to get 1 to 2 African American juries. If you're lucky, if you're super lucky, you get 2. You might get 1. Most cases, you're going to get 0 because we don't make up a lot of the population down there. He didn't need to leave the tent. Definitely understand that. But from high school, we stayed on our side. That's what we did. I'm so baffled on what Karmelo thought that he could stab someone and go run and invent. And look, I was trying to explain to people. That's what you got to remember. And I would just try to tell people who are on Karmelo's side. He either got pushed or tackled or whatever you want to be. You can't stab somebody in the chest. That's a non-starter. So at that point, you're going to get some time. I just thought it was going to be on a manslaughter as opposed to a murder. But with that being said, you can't stab somebody. The response to a pushing or a football move can't be a stab to the heart. It can't. You're going to be in trouble. Oz put his hand on him and grabbed him, and I don't think he stabbed him. I think he was holding on to the cleat cleaner, and also ran into him and got hit with the cleat cleaner. Karmelo said he did it. So he said he did it. So we can't argue against. Now, you can't argue against his own words. He said he did it. Do you think he was set up to fail? I mean, honestly, he could have pleaded it down and got to have the time. No, he couldn't have pleaded it down because what? That press conference. When he had that press conference and he went at the Metcalfs and then the state went and met with the Metcalfs, what would y'all like to see happen? They wanted as much time as possible because they got disrespected at that press conference. Let me tell you what happens in a murder case. The defendant goes to jail. The state of Texas gets the case and they turn it over to the DA's office. The DA's office gets an investigator and they go out and meet with the family. So guess what happened when they met with the family? You met with who? They met with Jeff Metcalf. They met with Jim Metcalf, right? And they met with mom, right? Because you're going to go meet with mom and dad. And guess what Jeff Metcalf is? He's mad because he got kicked out of what? The press conference, right? And so you got DAs talking to an angry Jeff Metcalf because he got kicked out of a press conference that should have never happened. That's why you don't do the press conference. Because guess what? When you get charged with murder, you go to jail. You get charged, you bond out. Case goes over to the DA's office. When you went to jail, y'all had a press conference. You argued with Jet Metcalf and it blew up in your face and everybody's hating each other. Everybody's about to fight. Everybody's angry at each other. Well, when the case got to the DA's office and the DA's got the investigator, now I have to go talk to an angry Jeff Metcalf and an angry mom. Not only that, I got everybody in the county with their eyes on me as a DA's office. I got everybody in the state with their eyes on me as a DA's office. I got everybody in America right now with their eyes on me as a DA's office. So guess what? Kid died. Got stabbed in response to either a punch or a push at a track meet. And his family's very angry. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm not going to offer him a good deal. I'm not going to charge it as a manslaughter. I'm going to charge it as a murder. And then if they happen to go down and find him guilty of manslaughter, so be it. I'm going to charge it as high as I can. Any plea offers I offer him, I'm going to start 30, 35, 40. Because he ain't going to want to take that because his lawyer's going to think he can do better than that. So that's why you don't do the damn press conference. That's why you can't plead it down. Bro showed no remorse and acted like he had no choice but to stop acting like he was attacked or wasn't instigating. Once again, I was trying to explain to people, the body cams are a new thing too as well, right? We've only been through the last 10 years of body cams, right? The body cams can show how you felt in real time. That's another thing. And there's not any remorse in that. There's not a lot of remorse in that initial thing until he realizes that the young man is dead. And he starts crying. And that's when he knows. But he starts to show remorse then. But with that being said, I think that press conference struck a bad tone, and that bad start leaked into the whole thing. Just look at the photos. They had to stay silent about people peeing on Austin's grave. You tell a man to be silent and you want to kill white people and piss on their graves. I always try to tell people, for the idiots that were doing that, and I always tell people, I'm not going to feel a way about a person or a group of people just because they feel a certain way about me. I hold myself accountable about who I am, not holding myself accountable about being like them towards me like I need to be towards them. I don't do that. I hold myself to another standard. Only thing I think defense should have raised was the possibility that Austin actually running toward Karmelo actually caused a knife to go inside of him by running at him so hard. That's a great thing, and that's why I would have had him testify. But if you have the client testify, then you can try to say that. There's no cleat sharpener. I ran track through high school and college, never sharpened cleats. The spikes crew in. No one has a some cleat tool. I definitely understand that. Hey, but at least he could have got himself up there and said some things. Talking and being on the spot, two different things. Nothing will change. Karmelo was an agitator, period. Isn't Texas stadium ground more? Isn't the stadium public, although it was invading space? Well, I get that, but you can't stab somebody in the chest. But Austin, you can't put your hands on anybody because they are allowed to respond. But Karmelo, you can respond, but you can't use deadly, or you can't lose lethal force against non-lethal force. So there were mistakes made all around. Unfortunately, Austin mistakes cost him his life. The coach asked Austin to step up, be a leader, which sadly got him killed that day. I don't know about that. Well, I know what you're saying about that. Austin and Hunter could have went and got a T-shirt and had to have Karmelo removed. That could have been done. That's true. One bad decision cost Karmelo his life. That's true. It's costing him 35 years right now. If it was the other way around, if everyone would be if it was the other way around, how upset would have everyone did about the kid who died? We're talking about this like color matters, actions matter. I always try to tell people, if you change the colors of the people, how bad would black people would be mad? Very mad, right? I always try to tell people, an 18-year-old and 17-year-old, to me, had a minor altercation that led to a major altercation that led to a, number one, a major change in both of their lives. One lost his life, and the other one got 35 years, and it wasn't worth it. There used to be a tool on shoes. We added those sharps in, but you can see the knife we use. It's not a tool. It's a folding knife. Yeah, but it was a multi-tool. Mel actually went to the trial, so it is what it is. Metcalf raised around, show what kind of children he has raised. Possibly. Possibly. Yeah, you say anything to justify stabbing and killing anybody. With that being said, at the end of the day, if you're going to stab someone after they allegedly push you, you're going to have to give a reason. Now he has epilepsy. Come on. He did have epilepsy. It was verified in court. So that's not something that anybody's making up. And y'all wonder why people are becoming racist. People didn't become racist. They already were. I mean, they were racist before this case. They didn't become racist. They were what they were. As the coaches should have known that the shit was going on and they pretending they didn't have no responsibility. They should have been there. They should have been supervising. On the video, you can see them walking around right up to Karmelo and then both of them going back and forth. Okay, I see some of that. He was offered a plea deal and the family said no. What do you mean the family said no? I don't know. I probably got offered a plea deal with a high number because after that press conference, you're going to end up getting a high number. All that BS, he was not bullied. He has a history of fights and being an aggressor. You guys need to stop the lying. Whether he's being bullied or not really wasn't an issue. Austin ran at him and put his hands on him. But it still did not mean that Karmelo should have been trying to stab him with the weapon. But that's all that was to me. I didn't care about the rest of it. Used to be an eye for an eye. Okay. What do you think about Karmelo's witness saying damning things about him? That's a concern. When I say Karmelo witness saying damning things about him, I don't know if they said damning things about him, but I think his spokesperson said he wasn't jumped. So I think that you got that out of the water. Open carry state, but it's legal to defend yourself. Mimi, it's not illegal to defend yourself. It's just that you don't get to stab somebody in the knife or the heart over a push, over a physical altercation that does not involve a weapon. Typically set to see it when they please, which is they should have parents wanted the money instead of talk them out of it. I don't know. Go to the next one. Define self-defense in this case. People got to understand, when you defend yourself, if you are having non-lethal force used against you, you can use non-lethal force in your defense. Hands on hands, fine. Feet on feet, fine. Feet on hands, fine. But you can't get pushed or hit and then put a gun and shoot somebody. Karmelo's parents put him in a great community and good schools to strive and win in life. And it took Karmelo Anthony 2 minutes to throw all the hard work away. Okay. What else we got? 4 against 1 has been verified. 4 what against 1? It hasn't been verified. I mean, there's no 4-on-1 been verified. I mean, watch the video. You see that it's basically, for the most part, Austin and Karmelo, maybe with the brother Hunter standing behind him. It is what it is. So he wasn't being jumped. I mean, his spokesperson said he wasn't being jumped. There's no reason to act around being pushed with a knife. You know, that's the way a lot of people took it. And that's really what the law is. Proportionality says you can't react with a knife. Carmelo's own coach said he had no business being under the other team's tent. Most of the coaches tell people to stay on the same side. Don't go over there. Stay on your own. Stay with your own team. We got to talk about our stuff anyway. But with that being said, there should have been a reason to put your hands on nobody. The Metcalfs was somewhat wrong, but Carmelo's massively wrong. I agree with that. We know what happened on the tent. Karmelo did not get jumped, so that's all bullshit. Okay, let's keep going. Can the jury consider if the victim contributed to his own death? I think that's the whole reason why I would want Karmelo to talk and say what happened. Hey, if he put his hands on me, it's different. Do you think the only 3 black jurors should have been dismissed due to occupation? That's something that that they're going to be argued about, and that's going to be concerning to anybody watching the trial. He had 3 until the made by statements. I don't know. If it was Karmelo that was murdered, you would demand death penalty, and you would racist back, and you racist bastard know that. I don't know, but first of all, you gotta watch your language on it. If you're gonna make comments like that, you're gonna say stuff like that. Don't come here and comment. Go back to the cave where you belong if you're gonna make those kind of comments. Look at who defended the young man. Why would they protect him? I don't know. The potential black jurors were asked if they could be impartial, and they said no. Mel, why did the judge tell the jury to sit down? Do we think they should have change of venue? We talked about this, Mel, before. I told you the other counties around Dallas. If Dallas is a more liberal county, I don't think that Collin County was going to let it go to Dallas. And if it goes to another county outside of Dallas, I don't think that would have done Karmelo any good, because the other counties are not that good either in terms of for Karmelo. I don't think it would have been any fairer. There was an ongoing feud. That's how it ended. I don't know. He could have pleaded manslaughter, blame his parents. When you say blame his parents, I'll lay some of the blame on them, because you shouldn't let somebody come in and tell you to have a press conference and allow that to happen. That shouldn't happen. Why aren't they doing an incident showing personally using the event, and why was he arrested? It seems to be shady. Karmelo was scared. Those 2 brothers were day 1 bullies. Like I said, he probably should have testified. It would have been a better situation. I think he was high. He had no business in that tent. All he had to do was, right, it looks like he came to the event looking for a conflict. Wow, they have the knife. I don't know. But Mel, I'm going to take a couple of more of these and I'm out of here. Nope, you can see the pics of the knife at the crime scene. Y'all will back anything as long as they're black. I guess I don't know. All right, people call guns cordless hole punchers too. I don't know. They go get a teacher or a coach. I get what you're saying about that. That dude needs to be locked up for the rest of his no good life. Set to fail, he brought a knife to a high school sport event and put it in the heart of a kid. Hey, a lot of people say that. And then they say, hey, you shouldn't have had a knife at that event. Shouldn't have pulled it out. And shouldn't have put it out in response. That's going to always be debated. So nobody cares. Did the witness lie, though? Oh, we definitely care about the witness lying. And I think that's why you were definitely going to try to ask for an appeal and use that for one of the things about the appeal. 2 more comments and I'm out. The father was going to want the most regardless. We probably lost his son. So you lose your child, you might want the most. I put my sons in martial arts to protect themselves and the others, but not to take a life unless their lives are on the line. Omar, the baddie, I definitely agree with you on that. But y'all, let me go ahead and go into this, and I'll tell y'all this. Listen, everybody has their opinion about what happened. He has been tried in Collin County, and of course, they found him guilty and gave him 35 years. He has appealed this case. Unfortunately, like I said, an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old lost their lives. When I say lost their lives, one died, and the other one is probably going to be 40s or 50s before he gets out of jail. The sad part about it is conflict resolution. 2 young men got into an argument. They ended up resolving it like this, and that shouldn't have happened. More importantly, the thing that I'm disappointed about is the ugliness that has come about on both sides of the aisle, black people and white people, and the fact that we're raising kids that can't resolve conflict. And when I look at some of the comments that were made, based on some of the comments I see in this case, I can see how these kids end up resolving the conflict the way that they did. Because a lot of the ways that we're responding on these blogs and responding on these pages, it's just sad. But with that being said, I think there were a lot of mistakes made in this case by the defense. And even before the defense team got the case, I think having a press conference was wrong. I think that was a wrong defense strategy. I think I would have called him to stand. With that being said, there may be some in his background that I found out about, and maybe I don't put him up there. But with that being said, I think this is the one of the cases for the ages, and I think all we can all do is try to learn and be better from it. And I think that's what we got to start looking at. And it is what it is. Calvin Johnson, Mel Smith, Weekly Legal Review, Karmelo Anthony case. We're out.
Different voices, but the same song. Building a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the flame remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. The colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.